Well, crews are working to contain dozens of out-of-control fires burning across the country right now. In Ontario, teams are steadily pushing back against the Parry Sound 33 fire. It's now creeping just kilometers away from the Trans-Canada Highway. Evacuation orders have been extended in the area. Weather was on the side of crews fighting the fire from the perimeter and the air yesterday, but there are concerns that dry heat may test those lines there and throughout the province today. Joining us for more is Isabelle Chenard. Now, she's with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. She's kindly agreed to join us. Isabelle, thanks for joining us. What's the latest update that you have?
So, like you mentioned, we've had a couple of good days fighting fires on the line. We've had high relative humidity, and we're expecting that to change over the course of the long weekend. So, drier, hotter weather, and perhaps some stronger winds. So although there's been some really great progress made, we just want to remind the public that fires like North Bay 72, Parry Sound 33, Kenora 71, those fires of note are still very active, and we're urging the public to respect travel restrictions in place around those fires.
What's the biggest challenge right now for firefighters?
So there's a few that are ongoing, but the one for the Northeast has been Parry Sound 33. Because of the location of where that fire is, the winds have been relatively stronger than elsewhere in the Northeast region. So that's been challenging for both fire crews and firefighting aircraft. But they're continuing to work. Over the last few days, the winds have been favorable, and that means that there's been a little bit less smoke in the communities, and also that it's been productive for the crews on the ground. Another challenge is perhaps the escalation now in British Columbia. So we did have some British Columbia crews here over the course of the past few weeks, and they did get recalled at home. So we are both very escalated, both provinces, and so we are going to be getting more resources from other provinces at this point so that they can be on the ground fighting their fires at home.
Let's talk a bit about evacuations. This, of course, can be a very emotional process for people to go through. They are disconnected in so many ways from things familiar to them. Any expectations of when they might be able to return to their homes?
Yeah, so it's really our first priority is public safety. So really getting those fires to a level where the fire activity permits those people to go back to their homes. I do have to say that we've had incredible support from the communities, both in Parry Sound 33 and in other areas in the Northeast. And those people are, under stress, but they are very encouraging for the crews, and they're very thankful that we're on the ground fighting the fires near their home.
Even though you may not be in the direct path of the fire, air quality, of course, downwind can be an issue. How much of a concern is that?
So based on the wind direction, that shifts the amount of smoke that's present in communities, and we've heard, different people calling us from different areas throughout the week as the winds were from the southeast and then from the north. So essentially, if you're concerned about your health, when it comes to smoke, we do encourage you to call Telehealth Ontario, and you can find their number on our website at ontario.ca/forest fire. There's also a site on Environment Canada that you can check for weather alerts, and that information is also on our website, and it does address smoke in communities, so you can check that out. Essentially, there will continue to be smoke over the next coming weeks because there's a lot of fire on the landscape in the Northeast.
One final question about, you mentioned people cooperating. Still, though, is there a danger that people might decide they want to get a look at this, they want to get closer? What is your advice to anyone who wants to go anywhere near the zones we're talking about here?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're all kind of thinking that we've had some good days. We've made some really great progress, but these fires are very large in nature, and they are quite active still. With the dry conditions and with the current heat that we're going to be experiencing over the long weekend, that can cause the fires to become much more active. So we really urge the public that although you may think that there's been less fire activity going on, those travel restrictions both on water and on land are in place for a reason, and that is to ensure public safety. So we're really urging you to stay away from the area where there's active fires burning, and those measures are in place for your security.
Prime Minister is heading for Duncan, BC today, and the hundreds of fires burning in that province are sure to be top of mind. And Trudeau isn't the only one heading for the West Coast. British Columbia is set to receive support from firefighting crews from a world away. Zana Primji has more.
So smoky, the helicopter just disappears.
This is the biggest blaze burning in BC right now. The Snowy Mountain Fire has already burned about 10,000 hectares of land in the Karameas region, which is quite clear in this video. However, it isn't the only blaze fire crews are working to contain right now. It's one of nearly 450 fires burning across the province. This is a look at the Chancellor Lake fire in the Caribou. And for the first time this wildfire season, the BC resources just aren't enough to battle the uncontrollable blazes, which means there's a call for all hands on deck internationally from the BC Wildfire Service.
There is going to be some frontline firefighters in there, particularly from Mexico and from New Zealand, as well as from some of the other Canadian jurisdictions.
The crews are set to arrive Monday, and they'll be joined by other fire crews from Australia later in the week. Last month, 200 fire crews from BC were sent out to Ontario and Quebec, but they've since been called back home to help here. As the blazes continue to spread and crews work through all daylight hours to battle them, fire officials aren't too optimistic about reprieve in sight.
It's only the first week of August. This is generally our busiest time of year, and based on the weather forecast we're seeing right now, no real relief in sight, no major rain that's going to really hit the reset switch in terms of how hot and dry things are. So we're going to need these resources to ensure that we've got the capacity to keep our response up, for the next few weeks, if not for the next month.
Crews continue to battle all of the nearly 450 blazes burning throughout daylight hours, with at least 60 firefighters, 3 helicopters, and 4 pieces of heavy equipment alone dedicated to the Snowy Mountain wildfire. Just a snapshot of the work being put in through the warm, dry season.